So now let's talk a little bit about what happens in case of default. This is maybe the main part, the interesting part for you guys. How can you explain to your sellers what happens in case the buyer doesn't pay? Well, everything is outlined in the fideicomiso. There's specific step-by-step rules within the same fideicomiso de garantía that explains what needs to be done to sell the property out of the courts. First step is to present a notice of default. The seller presents a written notice to the trustee bank and saying, hey, the buyer didn't pay this and that monthly installment. I have charged him 100, 200, as many daily penalties that he has incurred. And the trustee bank will receive that, and of course they will say, okay, you want to begin the sale, the foreclosure process. You need to pay the trustee fee, the 3% that I already mentioned. They ask for half of it in advance, so the seller must come up with that money from his pocket, pay it, and then recover it once the property is sold. At that point, he can recover the legal fees, the closing costs, the expenses, everything. But at that point, he must come up with the money. And the trustee bank will turn to the buyer and say, hey, I received this notice of default. You are granted 5 days to show payment or pay, and also to appoint, to deliver the property. I forgot to mention that the buyer, he's the beneficiary in second place, but he's also a custodian of the property. That's his role, to take care, to maintain the property in good standing. But if at some point he stops paying the loan, he must return the property as a custodian. He must deliver the property to a new person that's going to be appointed by the seller. And if he does not do that, that involves penalties, daily penalties for the buyer, and he can also face criminal charges. That's a key element as well in regards to the guarantee trust, that if the buyer doesn't want to vacate the house, the condo, he could face criminal charges, jail time. So step number 5, if he did not pay, then the trustee bank gets a valuation, a commercial appraisal of the property, and based on that value, he's gonna call for bidders. Call for bidders is published in the newspaper, and an auction could take place. Normally, in this, let's say, transparent process, everybody's allowed to participate in the auction. We have a call for bidders in the newspaper. Any bidder must present a check for 10% of the appraised value to make bids. And if nobody shows up, and if the creditor's bid doesn't match the 80% appraised value, which is the starting point for an auction, then you can call for a second or third auction with a reduction of 10% on each. So you're talking about a reduction of 40% discount on the appraised value of the property, and the seller can use his creditor's bid to take the property, and of course go through the entire closing process to recover, remove the lien, remove the seller from the title, and get a clean title under his sole name. So at the end, there's a closing process to get either for a bidder that paid the money and the trustee bank then distributes to pay the loan, or to have the seller a recovered title, clean title under his name. So that's basically the structure of a default. I've seen also, for example, I saw Intercam Guarantee Trust. They use also a Guarantee Trust, Moxie and Intercam. And instead of going through the auction process, the rule says that the bank is going to hire one of you guys, a real estate agent, to sell the property. And once you find a buyer, the buyer will pay for it and get the sale done instead of going through an auction. So it's all open. It's open. There's no written in stone rules. You can use your imagination on how to make it work.